Hi, so this is going to be part one of a series of video journals that I'll be doing for our final project. And in this first one, I'm going to discuss why I decided to take gender in society and why it interests me. So, to jump right into it, one of the reasons I decided to take this course and why it interests me so much is that growing up, what I'd learned about gender um, and the differences between sex and gender were wrong. Um, Throughout elementary, middle school, they always taught us that there's a boy and there's a girl, and they never really distinguished between what sex is and what gender is. It wasn't until I got into my later years of high school and into college that I really started to pay attention. Um, and one of the things that was really brought to my attention was um, sexuality in itself, being heterosexual, um, gay, bi, pan. I'd heard of them when I was younger, around like middle school, early high school. Started hearing more about it, but when I was younger, it wasn't really talked about. Um, it wasn't that my family wanted to hide things from me, or at least I don't think so. I just feel like it was something that the family didn't want to talk about. um, for some reason, sex and sexuality, it's such a hard thing for families to talk about. It's like something that we all want to keep close to our chest and not admit that we are sexual beings, um, especially for young women. Like, we're not supposed to think about it or anything like that, even though they expect all of us to eventually someday be mothers. Um, but I feel like I'm deviating from the point. But my when I was younger, I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house, especially on like summer vacation. She lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, so I would go and see her. And every time I went, my aunt would be there. And ever since I've known her, I have never seen her in a skirt or a dress or anything remotely um, feminine as far as clothing goes. And I never really questioned it. I just figured that was my aunt. I loved her anyway, and I didn't see that as reflective of, you know, her gender identity or anything like that. I recognized that she was still a female, that she was still my aunt. She used she, her pronouns and everything like that, even though I didn't understand at the moment how important pronouns were. I just recognized that my aunts wore men's clothes, those shorts that come like 3/4 of the way down your legs, button up shirts and things like that. Um, it wasn't until I got a little older when I started to recognize that her female friends weren't just friends, that they were her partners, her girlfriends. And it wasn't that she was hiding that from us, it was just that nobody had ever talked to me about what it meant to be gay. And I loved her still because I feel like one of the reasons why it wasn't a huge eye opener to me or anything like that is because everyone in my family treated it like it was natural, and it was. Um, we never had any homophobic family or anything like that. They they accepted my aunt for who she was, as they should. And I feel like one of the reasons that they didn't tell us, what it meant to be gay, or that you could be gay, was just that they probably thought we were too young to understand. Um, but it makes me wonder, how old is old enough to understand, you know? Because in elementary school, getting out of elementary school, they never really talked about it. That it wasn't just boy and girl, but along a spectrum that you could fall somewhere in between, whether you're talking about your sex or your gender, or that gender has to do with how you perceive yourself and how society perceives you and stuff like that, but it's not immediately, you know, like, oh, you're born with a certain genitalia, therefore you are of a certain gender. That's the way that they taught us, and I feel robbed and wrong to find out that they were lying to us the whole time. Um, so it really got me thinking, especially with some of our first lectures, especially the one on distinctions, when we were talking about the high heels and how it was originally the men that wore them, and then the females picked that up. Um, it really just started making me think about how I've seen gender portrayed in society, but really just seen myself portray my gender, how I perform my gender, and also how I've seen, my family members perform their gender. Um, and to be honest, I, even though I didn't quite understand what my struggle was at the time, I actually did struggle a bit with my gender identity because of the way that society portrayed how you're supposed to perform it. I was supposed to be, in the dresses and skirts and playing with Barbie dolls. And don't get me wrong, I did those things. But when I was younger, I didn't like dresses. I didn't like skirts. I wanted to be in pants and gym shoes. I wanted to um, be in shorts, and I wanted to wear boys' clothes. I feel like some of that influence came from constantly being around my cousins who were male. The cousins that were close in to my age, they were male. And it seemed like it was more practical clothing for the things that they did. We liked to roughhouse and ride our bikes and play with our plastic bats and balls and everything like that. And it seemed really impractical to try to go out there and, wear a skirt or a dress trying to do that. There's no way. Um, so I would have fun with my cousins over the summer, and I'd go back home and go to school, and I wasn't girly enough for like the kids at my school. It was mostly the boys that told me, you're not like the other girls. They wouldn't want to play in the dirt. They wouldn't want to, hang from the jungle gym and everything like that, or jump from the swings because it was dangerous, it was scary. But I feel like that's a false portrayal of, gender identity and gender performance. Um, but despite that, I always considered myself more of a tomboy when I was growing up, you know, especially because I played softball instead of doing like cheerleading or gymnastics or something like that. I like to go out there and play in the dirt and chase after the ball and sweat and everything like that. Um, and it was so similar of a sport to like baseball. It made me feel, you know, less feminine. And I liked it, but I felt like I was in conflict with myself because ever since I could remember, everyone referred to me as a girl. They used she, her pronouns with me, and it was like I was performing my gender wrong, therefore I couldn't be like all the other girls. I was different. I was a little weird. Um, but I loved that about myself, even if I was still a bit conflicted about what that meant. And now that I'm older, I've realized it doesn't really mean anything. That all these things that people have seen me do, things that I've worn, and they've said they aren't stereotypically female, it hasn't affected my gender identity. I still consider myself a woman. I am a cisgendered woman. And I still like playing softball, though I haven't played in a few years. I miss it at times. But I have noticed that I have made a transition in my life, in my taste, in the way that I perform my gender, from my clothing to like my makeup. When I was in middle school and high school, um, well, starting in middle school, I saw that girls my age, they were starting to come to school wearing, makeup. Some of them, most of them were pretty subtle, but then others were wearing like full faces of makeup by the time they were in seventh grade. And, you know, kids do as they see each other do. So I asked my mother if I could start wearing makeup, and she told me that I'm too pretty to be wearing makeup, that um, my natural looks were gorgeous. Why would I want to put anything on my face? So it was at that moment that my mother instilled in me the idea of natural beauty, but I feel like she also accidentally instilled in me that makeup was to cover up insecurities and things like that. That people that wore makeup wanted to change themselves and didn't think that they were beautiful, naturally. And I grew up with that mindset until like maybe my sophomore or junior year of high school, when I recognized that makeup isn't just something that you wear to cover up your insecurities. I mean, some people do use like color corrector and things like that, but it's not really just to cover up their insecurities, but also to enhance the more beautiful features about themselves that maybe an acne scar or something like that detracts from, or maybe they feel like it detracts from it, even if nobody else is staring at it. It just makes people feel good. And also, makeup is a work of art. I've seen makeup tutorials on TikTok and things like that. And for one thing, I could probably never pull those off just artistically. But it's beautiful. It's a form of expression. And it's something that I recently got into, though I say recently rather loosely. But yeah, I recently started getting into makeup. I've got a big old makeup box that I'm actually going to show you. Hold on. So this here is my makeup box. It's not my very first makeup box. My first one was from Ulta. It was a small pink thing about the size of the very top of this. Um, and I got that for my senior pictures. We bought that whole starter makeup kit, so that way I can get ready. Oh, no, correction, for my prom. But I also used it for my senior pictures and, graduation and stuff like that. So now I have upgraded and it's huge. I keep all kinds of stuff in here, from my makeup to, self care items that I didn't use when I was younger. And it was because I considered myself a tomboy, but I have found myself, slowly, easing in to the more feminine things that are considered stereotypically feminine. Um, though makeup I have found is not necessarily just a feminine thing. Going back to the TikToks that I've seen, some of those were male presenting people that were doing makeup and doing makeup even better than I could ever hope to do it. Um, but the point is, like, years ago, there is no way I would have been spending time, you know, putting on a full face of makeup. I don't do it every day. I do it when I feel like it, but more often than doing a full face, sometimes I'll decide I want a little color on my eyelids, or I want to wear some eyeliner and some mascara just to make my eyes pop a little bit. And also, just beyond my makeup, I've also found that my taste in clothing has changed. Though not saying that my old style has just completely gone out the window, it's just more that I've added to it. So I've found myself migrating from the more masculine end of the spectrum to super feminine, though I would say that I myself am still not super feminine, and no matter what clothing I'm wearing, I still identify as a woman, though it makes me wonder and make me think, what do other people think of me when one day they see me wearing a really frilly dress and then the next day they see me in overalls and Converse? And my style is very, well, varying and diverse. I can sometimes wear like an alt style, or I did go through like what people would call an emo phase back in middle school, and slowly eased my way out of it. And as I moved into not high school, because high school I was still wearing pretty muted colors and stuff like that. But when I got to college, I started exploring different colors and things that would look good on me. Like at the moment, I am wearing a bright yellow crop top, like hoodie thing, and it says melanin across the front of it. I would not have worn this in high school or middle school. I mean, I shouldn't be wearing crop tops in middle school, but that's neither here nor there. It's the color, it's how loud it is. And I felt like if it wasn't in academia, if it wasn't in softball, I tried to make myself smaller. I tried to make myself less noticed by wearing muted colors and covering more skin. But as I've gotten older, I've decided that I'm going to take the confidence that I had from my sports, from my academic accomplishments, and start putting that into myself in self care and expressing myself. So, one of those ways I did that was through fashion. My wardrobe has changed a lot. Now, have I completely abandoned my old wardrobe? No. It just shows up a little less often in what I tend to wear. But it's perfectly fine, because every now and then I'm feeling nostalgic and I want to go back to wearing like my black vest, or an all black outfit, put on my original Chuck Taylors, the high tops with the black and white and everything. It's just too bad that they stopped making the knee high ones, because I had quite a few pairs of those in middle school. Made me feel edgy. um, but yeah, and you'll see in the pictures I'm about to show you just how much my style has changed. So, as you can see, I'm wearing, colorless, not necessarily fitting or flattering clothing to something more flattering to my figure, more feminine, even brighter colors, and just like really beautiful, ostentatious clothing. And I felt like this was something that I needed to do to resolve that conflict in myself between the way that I expressed my gender and my gender identity in itself. So I feel more complete to being able to express myself this way, but at the same time, I'm kind of worried that I have conformed to this norm that says in order to be feminine, I have to wear feminine clothing. So, I don't want to drag this on too long, but long story short, my personal experiences with my sex and my gender and people around me, and just the ways that I have evolved as far as forming my gender and expressing my gender through clothing, through makeup, through the things that I do. Um, it has evolved, and it's what made me interested in taking gender in society, because I want to understand just how gender is played out and treated and perceived on a wider scale, on a larger scale. And I just thought it'd be interesting to learn, something closer to the truth, because I feel like the American education system before college failed me as far as learning about this social, I don't really want to say issue, but the social phenomena of gender and sex and the way society reacts and perceives it. So, um, I hope that answers the question. And yeah, yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing where the rest of this semester goes, and seeing how this video journal and visual portfolio turns out at the end of this. Thank you for your time.